The UFC heads back to the T-Mobile Arena for the fourth time this year, looking to cap off their 2023 schedule with a pay-per-view headlined by 2 title fights. In the co-main event, we have newly minted flyweight champion Alexandre Pantoja looking for his first title defense as he takes on Brandon Royval in a rematch of a fight that took place in August of 2021. That night, Pantoja came out on top. Now Raw Dog looks to even the score with his title shot this weekend. In the co-main event, we got Leon Rocky Edwards looking to defend his welterweight title for the second time as he goes up against Chaos Colby Covington, who is always finding himself in title fights or 5-round fights, even though he has not competed since March of 2022. Look for this banger of a card to deliver as the year-end event for the UFC schedule as we take roughly 3 to 4 weeks off for the holidays and then return on January 13th for their first event of the year. Now, obviously, this is the condensed and shortened version of the breakdowns. This is the quick picks video. But if you're looking for in-depth breakdowns on all of these matchups that I'll be briefly covering for you guys, check out the MMA Logcast video that I dropped earlier this week. You can either click the link above or just check the link in the description below, and you can head on over to the full breakdown where I go in over an hour talking about all 13 or 14 fights that are on tap for this UFC 296 card. Also, if you enjoy doing your own researching and breaking down fights, check out the MMA Fight Archive where we have a 7-day free trial for you to try it out without having to pay a dime. Make sure you leave no stone unturned when you're researching all these upcoming events, not just the UFC, but also PFL, the RIP'd Bellator, which is now obviously PFL. We got Cage Warriors, LFA, ACA, KSW, Aries FC, A1 Combat, Fury FC, and starting in 2024, we'll be adding a handful of new promotions as well. I just made a post on the Patreon earlier today asking the subscribers which promotions they would like to see added to the archive. But if this is something that sounds interesting to you, again, try it out for free. 7-day free trial. Link for the MMA Fight Archive is in the description below. Make sure you guys check it out. All right. I hope you are laced up and ready to go because we're off and running with the first fight of the night. That goes down between Randy Rude Boy Brown and Muslim Salikhov. Randy Brown is coming in as a heavy favorite in this matchup, but stylistically speaking, this is one that he should win without too much issue, utilizing his 4-inch height and 8-inch reach advantage over Salikhov, not to mention the speed advantage he should have in this matchup. He should be able to keep Salikhov at bay with his kicks from distance, as well as his 1-2s down the middle, fueled by all the footwork and movement he will be showcasing. Salikhov is slowing down, obviously, at this stage of his career, closing in on the 40-year-old mark that he'll have in a few months, but I think that Brown is young enough, fast enough, and long enough to cause Salikhov issues, and we'll see Brown outpoint him en route to a decision victory. Next up, we got heavyweights throwing down between Martin Buday going up against Shamil Gaziev. I believe that this is a great fight for Buday to hand Gaziev his first loss. Look for the durability and the pressuring and pace of Buday to catch up with the Gaziev, who normally goes out there and tries to put his opponents away really quickly. I think this will be the most resistance we'll see Gaziev face, and I think that will force him to break, get frustrated, and end up falling short as this fight gets into deep waters, allowing Buday to pull away in deep waters and win this fight in the 3rd round or late 2nd round by TKO. Next up, we got Andre Fili going up against Lucas Almeida in a fight that could potentially be a striker's delight, but I think Andre Fili's overall advantages in this matchup, specifically with his grappling, the improvements that we've been seeing over his last couple of fights, should aid him in this victory over the hard-hitting style of Lucas Almeida. Almeida is very strong in the combination striking realm, but when he's unable to get off on that due to the grapple-heavy approach of past opponents, we see him usually end up coming up short. If Fili goes out there and sticks with his striking and then following up with some wrestling behind that, he should be able to put together a good enough body of work to get his hand raised over Lucas Almeida by decision. Next up, we got a flyweight matchup between Tagir Ulanbekov and Cody Durden. This is a very great matchup for both guys. For Tagir to continue the momentum that he's been building after that submission victory over Nate Maness last year. And for Cody Durden, who's on a solid 4-fight winning streak right now and showing improvements every single time out. But I believe that Ulanbekov will be able to keep Durden at bay and thwart his aggressive style by either slapping on a choke whenever Durden goes for desperation takedowns, or at least keep him at bay with his length and his striking from distance. Durden throws a lot in his shots and is happy to crash the pocket while eating a few shots, but I don't think that's the style he wants to implement against a guy as good as Ulanbekov. This might be close, and I don't really get behind the big, or at least the minus 200-ish line that Ulanbekov is currently at, but I wouldn't mind taking a nibble on his submission prop, hoping that he can snatch up the neck of Durden and take that on home with him. Next up, we got light heavyweights Alonzo Menifield taking on Dustin Jacoby. Menifield obviously has his unbeaten streak raised to 4 now after he was able to choke out Jimmy Crute earlier this year. He is a heavy hitter, but has shown some improvements, especially under the tutelage of Pat Barry. Unfortunately for him, I think he's in some trouble here against Dustin Jacoby, who should be able to keep him at bay with his technical striking approach. I think Menifield will be stuck sitting at distance as Jacoby batters him with leg kicks, with some teeps up the middle and his straight shots down the pipe, while using his footwork to keep safe from the big power that Menifield will be looking to put on him. I'm not big on the minus 255 line that's currently on Jacoby, but I think that he's more cleaner and more disciplined, and that will allow him to outpoint Menifield en route to a decision victory. Next up, we got Casey O'Neill going up against Ariane Lipski. O'Neill is obviously looking to pick up her first victory after returning from an ACL injury that kept her out for the majority of 2022. She returned against Jennifer Maia earlier this year. Unfortunately, she got outstruck by Maia, who was landing the more significant strikes. O'Neill is very aggressive and does not quit or give up on herself, but I think she's going to be in for some trouble as she goes up against the more disciplined and technical striker in Lipski. Lipski has shown great takedown defense as of late, and as long as that can hold up in this matchup against O'Neill, I fully expect her to get off on the more damaging and significant blows in the striking realm, allowing her to pull off the upset victory as the underdog by decision. Next up, we got Cody Garbrandt taking on the returning Brian Kelleher. Garbrandt obviously picked up a solid win over Trevin Jones earlier this year as he utilized a very safe and pedestrian-type game plan to outstrike and outwork Trevin Jones. Unfortunately for him, he goes up against a very aggressive Brian Kelleher here, who we know definitely packs a punch and has his own grappling chops if that's something he wants to lean on. I think Garbrandt's lack of confidence in his own ability to take damage nowadays will likely muzzle him and allow Kelleher to push the pace in this fight, stay in his face, and possibly find a knockout victory of his own. Give me the underdog here to pull off the upset by knockout. Next up, we got Irene Aldana going up against Karol Rosa. Kind of surprised how we have Aldana as a big favorite in this spot, as Rosa has a solid path to victory in this matchup. She's a very good striker, but also has a very educated grappling game, which is something I feel she can implement in this matchup to really wear on Aldana and put together a better body of work for the judges. We saw Aldana get outstruck and then out-grappled by Nunes in her last matchup, but it was even the fight previous to that against Macy Chiasson that leads me to believe that Karol Rosa can implement the same type of grappling style that Chiasson was successful with, and then follow that up with some good punches and output on the striking realm. So give me Rosa to pull off the upset by decision. Next up, we got Josh Emmett taking on Bryce Mitchell here. Emmett's looking to buck off a losing streak that he's currently on, but he'll be going up against a very tough and smothering Bryce Mitchell. Josh Emmett has big power in his hands, but I think he's going to struggle to put that power on Mitchell as Mitchell looks to cling on to him, drag him to the ground, and utilize his normal smothering style. Emmett showcases a takedown defense rate of 46%, but he's only been taken down by 4 of his 13 UFC opponents. I think that Mitchell can make that 5 out of his 14 UFC opponents, as Mitchell is very resilient and very durable, so he should be able to eat some of the damage from Emmett before he's eventually able to take this fight to the ground and grind out Emmett over 15 minutes. Give me Mitchell by decision. Next up, we got Tony Ferguson taking on Paddy Pimblett, and it brings me a lot of sorrow to try to break this fight down, especially considering how big of a fan of Tony Ferguson I used to be. He had a tremendous 12-fight winning streak, but since this COVID era, now finds himself on the back end of 7 straight losses, or I believe it's 6. Sorry. He's a very chaotic fighter that likes to utilize an unorthodox approach to frustrate, break, and finish his opponents, but his own durability is starting to go down the drain as he's been finished in 4 of his last 6 fights. I believe that we'll see Paddy Pimblett put that pressure on him with his punches, and then possibly even taking an approach that Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush did by dragging him to the ground and grinding Ferguson out. I think Pimblett's BJJ game is good enough to stay away from the active guard of Ferguson, and that should allow Pimblett to grind this fight out and win it by decision. Next up, we got Shavkat Rakhmonov going up against Stephen Thompson, and this is a very unfortunate pairing for Thompson, who has shown a susceptibility against guys that look to grind him down and utilize grappling. That's exactly what Rakhmonov will be looking to do here, as he should be able to close the distance without too much issue, drag Thompson to the ground, put him through hell, and then eventually find the finish within the first 2 rounds. Thompson's very good with his footwork and his striking, as we know, but we've seen guys like Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad put him through the ringer with their grappling. Now Rakhmonov is a even more dangerous version of those guys, especially when he's able to get fights to the ground, and I think he should be able to do that without too much resistance. Give me Rakhmonov, and Rakhmonov inside the distance. Co-main event time here, as we have the flyweight title on the line between Alexandre Pantoja and Brandon Royval. Pantoja obviously has a victory over Royval from August of 2021, where Royval tried to implement his chaotic style. Unfortunately for him, Pantoja was just too disciplined and too technical and kept getting the back of Royval, eventually sinking in the rear naked choke in the 2nd round. I, unfortunately for Royval, believe this fight will go relatively the same. Royval is capable of catching Pantoja on the feet with something wild, just like he did against Matthias Nicolau, but I still think that Pantoja will be able to drag this fight to the ground, as Royval has god-awful takedown defense, and from there, Pantoja should be able to work to another dominant position and eventually secure a rear naked choke or a submission of any sort to get his hand raised. I think violence is on the menu in this matchup, no matter who ends up winning, but I do think the champion retains here and defends his title for the first time. Give me Pantoja, and Pantoja inside the distance. And then the main event, we got Leon Rocky Edwards looking to defend his title for the 2nd time, going up against Kobe Chaos Covington. Now, Edwards has shown some decent improvements over his last 2 fights against Kamaru Usman, but the fact of the matter is, I believe that Kobe Covington is still a bad matchup for him. Covington does not rely on being so successful with his grappling as Usman has relied, which is why Covington is comfortable striking. He is fine with throwing output, putting on a high pressure and pace that his opponents are unable to keep up with, and I think that's the trouble that Edwards is going to run into here. Unless he's able to hurt Covington repeatedly or even drop him and finish him within the first 4 rounds of this fight, or 3 rounds, I think Covington will be the minute winner in this fight. He should be able to put on a high enough pace and mix in his takedowns behind it, and even if he's unable to secure those takedowns, he's fine with getting back out into striking distance and putting the output back on Edwards. I'm fully expecting Kobe Covington to control the majority of this matchup and win this fight on the scorecards, and new Kobe Chaos Covington. There you guys go. Quick picks for the 13 fights on this UFC 296 card. A reminder, I got plenty of other segments and breakdowns for this event. Check out the rest of my YouTube channel. I got a free parlay dropping for you guys tomorrow. I got 3 best prop bets dropping tomorrow as well. And then I've already posted the top 3 lock of the night and top 3 dog of the night candidates for you guys. Make sure you guys all check that out on the YouTube page. Otherwise, good luck on all your action this weekend, folks. And I'll see you guys again tomorrow for the free parlay and the 3 best prop bets. Peace.